John Smith lived a simple life. He worked at the local library. He enjoyed reading, especially science fiction. His evenings were spent in his small, cosy flat in London. Life was predictable, until it wasn't. John liked routine. He had his usual tea in the morning, read the paper, and walked the same route to work. He enjoyed the familiar faces at the library, the smell of old books. His life was a comforting rhythm. One evening, John came home from work as usual. He put his kettle on, anticipating a relaxing evening with a good book. As he turned from the kitchen, he noticed something odd. There, in his living room wall, was a door. This door was never there before. John stared at the door. It was an ordinary door, painted white with a simple brass doorknob, but it was utterly out of place. His flat was small, with only one bedroom, a living room and a kitchen. There were no other doors in the living room. Curiosity warred with apprehension. John was a creature of habit, and this unexpected intrusion into his ordinary life unsettled him. He cautiously approached the door, his hand hovering over the doorknob. He hesitated. What if it was a mistake, a prank? But the door seemed so real, so solid. He had to know what was on the other side. Taking a deep breath, John gripped the doorknob and turned. The door opened easily, revealing not the familiar hallway of his building, but a scene that made John's heart pound. It was his living room, but different. The furniture was rearranged, the walls a different colour. And on the sofa sat a woman he had never seen before, reading a book. She looked up, startled. "John, darling, you're early," she exclaimed, a warm smile spreading across her face. John froze, his mind reeling. Who was this woman? And why was she calling him darling? He took a step back, wanting to escape this impossible situation, but the door slammed shut behind him with a resounding thud. He was trapped. The woman, seemingly unfazed by his shock, patted the cushion beside her. Her calm demeanour was in stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside him. "Come sit, love," she said, her voice carrying a warmth that felt both familiar and alien to him. "What are you standing there for?" she asked, her eyes twinkling with a mix of amusement and concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Her words echoed in his mind, amplifying his sense of disorientation. John hesitantly approached, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Each step felt like a journey into the unknown. He learned her name was Sarah, and she claimed to be his wife. The revelation hit him like a tidal wave, leaving him gasping for air. This reality was eerily similar to his own, yet fundamentally different. It was like looking at a distorted reflection in a funhouse mirror. He recognized his belongings, his books, but they were arranged differently, as if belonging to someone else. The subtle changes gnawed at his sanity. He felt like an imposter in his own life. Days turned into weeks, each one blending into the next in a haze of confusion. John tried to adjust to this new reality, but the constant feeling of wrongness never left him. It was as if he was living someone else's life. He missed his simple life, his routine, the comforting familiarity of his own world. The ache of nostalgia was a constant companion. He had to find a way back. Determination replaced his fear, and he resolved to uncover the truth behind this strange new world. Section 5. The Walls Close In. John began to explore. He discovered that the door appeared in different locations at different times. Each time he stepped through, he found himself in another reality, a twisted reflection of his own. Some were benign, almost identical to his own, others were terrifying. He encountered a world ravaged by war, where the sky was choked with smoke and the streets patrolled by armed soldiers. In another he found himself in a sterile white room, strapped to a metal table, his memories probed by beings who looked disturbingly unlike humans. Each journey through the door intensified his desperation. He yearned for the comforting predictability of his own life, his own reality, but the door seemed to have a mind of its own, offering no logic, no escape. Section 6. Trapped in Twilight. The door became an obsession. John neglected his work at the library, his once beloved books now gathering dust. He spent his days and nights searching for the door, driven by a desperate hope and a growing sense of dread. Each new reality chipped away at his sanity. He found himself in a world where gravity was reversed, people walking on ceilings, buildings pointing downwards. He spent a terrifying week in a reality where silence reigned, all sound absent, communication reduced to frantic gestures and scribbled notes. With each transition, the line between reality and nightmare blurred. He began to question his own identity, his own memories. Was he still John Smith, the quiet librarian, or had he become something else entirely? Section 7. A Glimmer of Hope. One day, John stumbled upon a reality that felt different. It was as if he had walked into a dream, a place where everything seemed to align perfectly with his deepest desires. The city was a marvel of futuristic design, with towering structures that seemed to touch the sky and streets that glowed with an ethereal light. It was similar to his own, but there was a sense of peace, of rightness, that he hadn't encountered before. The people moved with a purpose, yet there was no rush, no urgency. It was as if time itself had slowed down to allow everyone to savour each moment. The air seemed cleaner, the colours brighter. The sky was a brilliant shade of blue, unmarred by pollution or clouds. It was a world that seemed to have found the perfect balance between nature and technology. People smiled at each other on the street. There was a genuine warmth in their interactions, a sense of community that John had longed for in his own world. It was a place where everyone seemed to belong. He met a woman in a park, her face radiating kindness. She had an aura of serenity that put him at ease, and he found himself opening up to her in a way he hadn't with anyone else. She listened patiently as he poured out his story, his voice thick with despair. He spoke of his struggles, his fears, and his longing for a place where he could truly be himself. When he was finished, she smiled sadly. There was a depth to her eyes that suggested she understood his pain, that she had seen many others like him. "The door is a test," she said. "It shows you infinite possibilities, but true happiness lies in finding your way back to yourself." Her words were like a beacon, guiding him through the fog of his confusion. "It shows you infinite possibilities, but true happiness lies in finding your way back to yourself." Each door represented a different path, a different version of his life, but none of them felt quite right. Her words sparked a glimmer of hope in John's heart. He realized that he had been searching for answers outside of himself when the true key to his happiness lay within. He had been so focused on escaping, on finding his own reality, that he had forgotten to look within. The journey he needed to take was not through the doors of different worlds, but through the depths of his own soul. Perhaps the key to returning home wasn't about finding the right door, but about understanding himself. With this newfound insight, John felt a sense of peace wash over him. He knew that his journey was far from over, but he was no longer afraid. He was ready to face whatever lay ahead, with hope in his heart and a clearer sense of purpose. Section 8. Lost and Alone. He searched for the woman in the park again, but she was gone. John roamed from one reality to the next, his hope dwindling with each passing day. He was lost in a labyrinth of his own making, the walls closing in. The realities became increasingly bizarre, surreal. He found himself in a world populated by sentient plants, their voices a symphony of rustling leaves and whispering vines. He spent a nightmarish week in a reality where time moved backward, people aging in reverse, their memories fading with each passing moment. He was a stranger in every world, adrift in a sea of infinite possibilities, yet utterly alone. The hope that had flickered briefly within him now threatened to be extinguished by despair. Section 9. Forever Lost. In a world where realities blend and time loses meaning, John found himself on an endless quest. John stopped searching for the door. The door that once symbolized hope and escape now seemed like a cruel joke, a mirage in the desert of his existence. He had lost track of how many realities he had traversed, each one more bewildering than the last. The lines between them blurred, making it impossible to distinguish one from another. How many versions of himself he had left behind, each one a fragment of his soul, scattered across the multiverse. He was tired, broken by the endless journey. The weight of countless lifetimes bore down on him, crushing his spirit. He found himself in a reality that was neither pleasant nor unpleasant, simply bland. It was a place devoid of colour, of life, of meaning. The days were all the same, a monotonous cycle of grey skies and uneventful hours. Each day bled into the next, an endless loop of tedium, a monotonous cycle of grey skies and uneventful hours. The world around him was a reflection of his inner turmoil, a never-ending grey. He had a job, a flat, but no real connections, no sense of belonging. His existence was a series of mechanical motions, devoid of any real purpose. It was as if he had become a ghost, a shadow of his former self. He moved through life unnoticed, unseen, a mere wisp of what he once was. A pale imitation of the man he once was. The memories of his past life were like distant echoes, fading with each passing day. He no longer remembered what it was like to have hope, to dream of escape. The fire that once burned within him had long since been extinguished. He was trapped, not just in this reality, but in the prison of his own mind. The walls he had built around himself were impenetrable, a fortress of despair. But in the prison of his own mind, the labyrinth of his thoughts twisted and turned, leading him deeper into darkness, forever lost in the labyrinth of the mysterious door. The door that once promised freedom now stood as a symbol of his eternal confinement.